Hi everybody, Beth here from Access Paranormal for this week's I Want to Know, which is a little more chilled out than often our great in-depth topics that we delve into. Halloween is tomorrow here in Australia at the time of this recording. So of course, why not explore some really interesting spooky facts that you may or may not know about Halloween in itself. So here in Australia, it's from my experience, I've like I said, I've always been interested in Halloween, always loved it, always been interested in the paranormal as well. And when I first, I'm talking from the age of 4, so I'm showing my age a little bit here. Halloween was literally unheard of. It was something that was very rare. There was nothing in the shops at all. My sister and I once attempted to go trick-or-treating. That was an interesting experience. We had a couple of people look at us very strangely, and I'm talking probably around 30 odd years ago, give or take 5 years. So all of you lay twice a day. Hi Andrew, hi Cara, hi Cat Girl. So yeah, it was a very, very different time back then. So around the 80s, I will say. And I've only, I think in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, it's really started to pick off here in Australia. I mean, there was so much stuff happening. I was in the city this weekend and places had decorations up, which I have not seen so much of before. There's so many different events that were going on as well. So it really has picked up. And interestingly enough, here in Australia, and I think it's also in a couple of other countries as well, a lot of people are happy about it, i.e. me, but some people aren't so happy about it. So some people are a bit sort of like, well, you know, it's so commercial, you know, it's all about, you know, American commercialism and candy and dressing up like an idiot and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So we'll delve into a couple of spooky facts of where all this wonderful Halloween stuff comes from. Hey, sweetie. Hi, Charmaine. Good to see you, gorgeous. Happy Halloween. Same to you, gorgeous one. So as you can tell, the lights are on. People have Christmas lights. I have ghost lights. So I figure, you know, that's my thing. Like I said, and I've said many times before, I love this time of year. It's the best time to shop. I'm sort of, you know, sort of mincemeat every night at the moment, just because I'm like, oh, there's this, there's that. I can't help it. But the one thing I've found is, like I said, is quite different in recent years compared to what has been in the past, is that, you know, as most people know, I go to America a lot for conventions and things like that, at least once a year. And you know, often it's to paranormal conventions where you can buy this kind of stuff. Well, now I'm finding that more of it is starting to happen here in Australia. You know, there's a couple of, you know, Halloween warehouses and stuff like that, instead of just trying to go to your local Target and sort of picking up a fluffy, you know, spider, you know, that size of your fist and kind of making something from that, or a foam tombstone. So they're really starting to get into it here in Australia, which I really, really love. So I'm very happy about that, even though there are some people that aren't. So all good and well. I love the lights. Thank you, darling. Yes, I've got my resident gravestone there. I've got my ghosty lights up there as well. So, but yeah, so get stuck into it. So this particular beautiful time of year, which I love, is very different. Obviously here in the Southern Hemisphere, Halloween is very much of a closing on the ending of the light and going into the dark. It's very Northern Hemisphere in that way. So it's the end of a harvest. It's you know, the death and the end of all the crops, and going and really kind of getting ready to bunker down. Apparently, it's a great time to be able to make jams and things like that, because you're using what's ever left and you're actually storing and getting ready. I say this, and it's 30 degrees in Sydney. You know, here in Australia, you know, which is the Celsius, which is like, you know, 86, I think it is, Fahrenheit. So give you a bit of an idea. So hard to kind of think that way. In Australia, we have grown up for many years having fake snow on trees when you're doing barbecues and going out to swim in the pool outside. We have a very different, we've just adapted to the Northern Hemisphere's way of celebrating a lot of the holidays that we've obviously gathered from the Europeans when they came over. So yes, this is kind of one of them. So it's all about, you know, harvest and closing, getting ready for the winter. But clearly I'm sitting here sweltering in shorts and a singlet. So it's slightly different down under. So firstly, one thing I wanted to mention is the fact that, surprise, surprise, Halloween is actually the highest grossing holiday as far as turnover, second apart from Christmas, as one could imagine as well. Hi Glenn, good to see you, mate. there's that. Also, Ireland is actually the birthplace of Halloween. So it's not something that's traditionally American. I know it's a general sort of thought view, the fact that, it has to be something that's from America because of all the commercialism around it. It's not. It's actually from Ireland. It's very old Celtic ritual traditions. We're getting for summer, exactly, Cara. Sidestepping from that, I always remembered Halloween as being this awesome time where we were going to change over to daylight saving, but in Australia of recent they've actually brought it a month forward. So, but back when I was growing up, it was coming into daylight saving. It was a spooky night, and we're going to have some lovely warm, weather and beaches and going out and stuff like that. So I'm a very, very different way of looking at it as opposed to what it would have been like in the Northern Hemisphere, particularly thousands of years ago, if you could have actually got out alive through your winter. So, of course, has anyone heard of jack-o'-lanterns? If you have, use the comment section below and actually say, yes, jack-o'-lanterns, if you have. It's a very old Celtic tradition, or very old Celtic story behind it. And what it is, and often some people may think it's about pumpkins, but hear me out. What it's about is this guy that was named Jack, a bit of a tight man as far as money goes and concerned, a bit of a meanie, if you want to say that. I'm being very G-rated here. And he actually, when he passed away, God had said to him, well, you're not coming to heaven. The devil said to him, well, you ain't coming here either, pal. So he was left to wander the earth with only a little bit of coal. So he had a tiny bit of coal and he put it sort of in and he carved it into a turnip. Now that's the other thing too. Originally, jack-o'-lanterns were carved into beetroot, potato, I think was also one of it, turnips as well. So think about the kind of root vegetables that were around in Celtic sort of times, particularly in Ireland where it all originated from. So he cut one out, just a standard one, put this piece of coal in there and he would carry it around. So Jack of the Lantern turned to Jack-o'-lantern. But of course, where did the scary faces into jack-o'-lanterns come from? Well, it's a way to actually sort of make sure that you can scare away Mr. Jack. So that's what people ended up doing, is they would actually carve scary faces into jack-o'-lanterns to be able to scare this guy away. So that's an interesting way in which how the origins of that. And of course, now the pumpkin side of it. Well, of course, in America, pumpkins are a lot easier to grow than they are in Celtic Ireland. So of course, it was the American absorption, if that's a word. I've just made one up to actually carry on this tradition as well. Yes, yeah, well, exactly. That's it. It's made of turnips originally, exactly. And of course, Cara's heard of jack-o'-lanterns as well. Gargoyles, was to scare evil beings as well. So yes, there was gargoyles were put in beautiful, some beautiful architecture, particularly even Victorian architecture here in Sydney have gargoyles on, and the tradition of that is come from the Celtics, where it's using that to be able to scare negative entities from being around the building, from being around the people. So even back then there's this strong belief about evil spirits that motivated people enough to actually change their buildings. So there's that as well. Yeah, love gargoyles as well. They look so trendy, so 2018. So there's that too as well. Also, trick-or-treating. If you've heard of trick-or-treating, I think you must be living under a rock if you haven't heard of trick-or-treating. It's not a way to be able to give your kids free chocolate, although I'm sure lots of parents do. Like I said, when my sister and I tried it, when we were probably only about maybe 8 or 9 at the time, we got some funny looks. We got some really weird looks. But I'm so glad those times have changed. Trick-or-treating originally had come from a very similar background to what is the Day of the Dead in America, or Cinco de Mayo, where you would leave treats for the spirits to appease them on the night that they will be around the streets, which would have been Halloween or Hallows Eve before All Hallows Day. And that All Hallows Day was on the 1st of November. So you would make sure that you were kind of okay. So by leaving those treats out there, originally it was a way to actually appease all spirits, not just negative ones as well. Now, of course, one thing I thought was quite interesting is the fact that there was in ancient Roman times, in a medieval Christianity, they actually had what they call souling. And first, when I thought about this and read about it years ago, I was like, well, it sounds a bit morbid. But actually, no, souling is what people would do on the 1st of November, and poor people, and they would go and offer prayers in order for soul cakes. so we all know what we're baking tomorrow. So soul cakes were a way to, you know, be able to give back and for them to redeem themselves, and, you know, this whole sort of exchange of faith and Christianity in that way. So that was a very medieval Christian way of adapting some aspects of what would have been Halloween traditions at the time. Now, of course, when we go into the shops, we see lots of black and orange, not because black and orange is really, really cool, or orange is the new black, I had to say it, is the fact that orange was obviously a symbolization of autumn. So it was the autumn colors. It was also a sign of, you know, resilience as well, apparently. I think gold and brown were also very strong colors as well. And black being a color, of course, is, you know, the ending, the death, that kind of stuff. So that's why that's why when you go into shops these days, you will see orange and black in there, is because they're very, actually old, very traditional colours associated with Halloween for those very reasons. Oh dear, Charmaine says, I keep cutting in and out. That's not a good sign. Hopefully, if anyone else is having issues with this particular broadcast, let me know. Sometimes the replay is actually better than the actual live recording, so hang in there, guys. Hopefully it's not too bad. Internet's been a bit interesting of late, so hang in there with me as well. Now, as I keep going, there is different types of references to Halloween. It hasn't always been known as Halloween itself. It's been known as All Hallows Eve. Obviously, a lot of people will have known it for that because that's the abbreviation. There's Witches' Night as well, because it's actually the end of the Celtic calendar. So it's known as Witches' New Year's as well. Lamb's Wool, there's another one. What was the other one? A Snap Apple Night as well. Obviously Samhain or Samhain, as a lot of people know of it. Obviously, I'm trying not to insult a lot of beautiful pagan people by giving it the wrong Celtic pronunciation, but also known as Summer's End. So like I said, it's the ending of the summer and of the light and of the harvest and sort of moving on. So it hasn't always just been known as Halloween in itself. Oh, Kara's got the thumbs up as well. So maybe you might have to watch the replay. Fingers crossed. It's not too bad. It does dip in and out a little bit. It does kind of go in waves sometimes with the connection here. But fingers crossed, in about 6 weeks, that should be fixed as well. Now, bobbing for apples. Who's heard of bobbing for apples? If you have, type yes, bobbing for apples in the comment section. When at the time of this recording of this video, I used to do that as well in my earlier years too, because also at the same time, I think another big influence was at the time my mum was dating an American guy, so he was really into it. So he was carving all the pumpkins, we'd get dressed up, and obviously there was we were introduced to apple bobbing. But did you know that it's actually not a Celtic, generally it hasn't derived from a Celtic tradition. It's actually an ancient Rome one due to the harvest they used to have back in their time as well. It was also known as Sans Apple Night and Nutcracker Night. So even in ancient Rome, they celebrated the end of the harvest with all their saints, and they were able. And by doing so, apple bobbing was part of it. Now, what it is, it sounds a little bit weird for those who may not know. Yeah, jinxed it. Oh no, damn. Oh, yes, Kat says, I've tried apple bobbing and got water up my nose. That's often what happens. The apple bobbing is, they have a big bowl of water and they put apples in it. And, of course, apples will float. And you put your face in it. And you're meant to try and grab one. And it's actually quite difficult. It sounds like super duper easy. But you know what? If you want to try and get your kids to eat fruit, by all means, get them to go apple bobbing. So it's a kind of a bit of a game who can have, you know, as many apples, that kind of stuff. Apple was the new candy, right? So that's what was a very ancient tradition in regards to Rome, but it wasn't something that originally had come from its Celtic beginnings as well. Now, who's heard of bonfires? Most of us would have heard of that. And it's interesting how sometimes we grow up with terms and we haven't, to me, and never really question it until you actually start to think, why is it called a bonfire? Is it just called a fire or a campfire? But actually bonfire comes from a time where it almost predates Halloween. And what they would do is they would actually light fires to try and encourage the sun to come back for another summer, because everything was pretty fickle back then. Obviously, the understanding of how our system, weather, seasons worked wasn't quite the same. So what would happen is they would actually light fires to encourage the sun to come back. But what the Druid priests would do would then throw bones into the fire. And by doing so, that's where bone fire and then what turned into bonfire. So it was a way to encourage the sun to come back for the summer months for crops and all sorts of stuff. So life can begin again as well. Who made the first jack-o'-lantern? Oh, Eerie Nate. I'll leave that one to you. That would be pretty cool. I have no idea, my friend, who would have made the first one. If it's something that's been, quite a while ago since the very, very first one was cut, I would love for you to be able to divulge your information on that. So that would be really cool. If you can put that in there, I'll actually put it in the comments section when I upload this video to other, like YouTube and also the website as well, just so people know. So Eerie Nate, if you can let us know who was the first one, because I'm gauging that you probably would. That would be super duper awesome. Okay, so who has dressed up for Halloween? I'm guilty. Obviously the costumes of today are extremely different to what the original actually was, particularly if you've been in America in the last 5 to 10 years, and also recent parties here in Australia. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, it's just changed. But as originally dressing up for Halloween actually had 2 different meanings to it. So originally it was actually, when it came from ancient Celts, it was to disguise yourself from evil spirits. So if you were to dress so differently, the spirits of the night wouldn't actually recognize you and you would be safe. But also there was parts in Europe where people would actually dress up with animal skins and animal heads to actually try and get in touch with spirits. So there was the other side of it as well. They wanted to be able to get closer to the spirit realm and wanted to get closer to animals and spirit animals and other people and that other plane, that by dressing up in that way on the night where the veil is meant to be the thinnest between the 2 worlds of living and dead, there goes the peacock. Don't worry, nobody's dying outside. Gotta love that thing. I wish that became part of the paranormal. It's, that was a way in which people would be able to try and get closer to the spirit realm as well. So there's a couple of interesting facts there about Halloween. Yeah, me, exactly, yeah. Being the first person to cut. So yeah, there's actually certain phobias that can be related to Halloween. You could actually have a phasmophobia, which means a fear of ghosts. On a side note, there is a fabulous series called Phasmophobia, which has been created by Moonlight Media. You may see a couple of familiar faces in there. I may also see if I can post the link to that as well if you're interested for something extra spooky to watch over the next couple of days. There's also Wiccaphobia, as a fear of witches. Nyctophobia, if you're scared of the night. So I'm thinking if that's the case, you'd have a very, very interesting paranormal investigating career. Maybe not. Maybe you should really look at investigating during the daylight. But nighttime, if you've got a fear of the nighttime, if you have nyctophobia, life's going to be pretty interesting for you. And also Samhainophobia. That is something, and that means a fear of Halloween. So there is actually a name for somebody who actually is scared of Halloween. Apparently jack-o'-lanterns were Irish, although they don't have pumpkins in Ireland. Yes, exactly. As we mentioned before, there's all the different types of, there was turnips and beetroots as well, and potatoes too. So I never. So yeah, so there are a couple of interesting facts there for you guys regarding Halloween. Some of it you may know, some of it you may not. It's, as I said, my favourite time of year. It would make it exciting, it certainly would. So again, be safe, enjoy yourself. I'd love to let me know your thoughts on some more facts, the other different information that you know of Halloween. Your thoughts of it. Is it a yay? Is it a nay? Is it a nay? You probably wouldn't be on this page. But yeah, it is our spooky time of year. The one time I think a lot of people who enjoy the paranormal, enjoy spooky stories, can probably feel the most normal, particularly if you're dressed out, and going out to certain events and things like that. So do play it safe. My mouth is quicker than my brain's quicker than my mouth. But have a great time, everybody, and I will see you next week.